I think it's time for some more whiskey. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, it is time for a little bit more whiskey content. Today we're taking a look at Talisker, 3 in particular. This is basically going to be a head-to-head between Talisker Skye, Talisker 10 and Talisker Storm for me to try and work out if I really like any Talisker at all. Now the reason I say that is that before I really got into whiskey, Scotch in particular, I would often sample different Taliskers because various friends and relatives really enjoyed it, and I always came away with the kind of impression that I kind of do like this thing, but I'm not really sure why and if I do completely, if that makes any sense. Never quite enough to buy a bottle at that point in my life, but now, well, I reckon we're probably about there, or at least in a position to be able to say once and for all whether I am indeed a Talisker fan or not, and if I am, which sort I should be buying. Now, of course, Talisker is a Scottish distillery based on the Isle of Skye. According to this packaging, they were established in 1830 because I am a whiskey novice, really. Well, I am a whiskey novice, know really about it. I don't know endless information about every distillery and their particular methods, but I do know a bit about the location because I have been. Again, unfortunately, it was before I was probably on my whiskey journey, if you like, so, you know, I didn't really spend that much time there, but it was a very nice place. It was full of tourists, me included, but safe to say it was a pretty impressive setup. Now, as I say, today we have got 3 different Taliskers we're going to look at in the form of these miniatures. I bought this box, I think it was from Amazon, maybe a year ago now, with the every intention of, well, doing this video, finding out whether I like them or not, and giving you a bit of a rundown. And it's sat on that shelf behind me for the last year, and don't really know why I haven't looked at it sooner. I just kind of kept putting it off, but today is the day. As I say, 3 different types: Skye, 10 and Storm. This definitely doesn't constitute the majority of their offerings. They do loads of different stuff, but I think these are the, well, maybe the best 3 intro whiskies from Talisker to try and work out which of their lineup you might like the best. As far as I understand it, the Talisker Skye is the more approachable, easy-going, relaxed, less peated, maybe more fruity option. The 10 is straight up Talisker, basically. That is, you know, the core brand. And then Storm, I've seen it compared to a well-weathered fisherman containing everything that the Scottish Highlands and Islands likes to offer when it comes to whiskey, especially with that smoky, briny, kind of, well, seafaring context anyway. It makes perfect sense. Talisker is not only on an island, but also right by the coast, so I'm expecting a lot of coastal flavours here today, which, to be honest, is something I've been looking more for when I've been buying whiskies of late, so yeah, I'm hoping to have quite a good time. So let's get into this box. I'm going to do them in the order I read them out, which is the Skye first. Yeah, that is Talisker Skye. Then the Talisker 10. And then the Storm, because in theory the Skye, as I say, is the easier going, should be lighter flavoured than the 10, somewhere in the middle, and the Storm a bit more aggressive and extreme in terms of its flavour profile, so that kind of makes sense. Right then, and of course I do have 3 Glencairn glasses ready to go and a glass of water to cleanse my palate in between. So let's get going. First up, it is Talisker Skye, single malt Scotch whisky. It is 45.8%. This is a 5cl bottle, and I don't know if you can tell. I'll try and do a little zoom in, but these bottles, well, they aren't exactly evenly filled. The Skye's got quite a lot less. The 10 is where I would imagine it to be filled, and the Storm is an overfill, but hey, I'm sure there's more than 5 in all of them, so it doesn't really matter. But, you know, tiny little bottle. Don't know if that's going to even get, there you go, just about gets picked up on camera. But Talisker Skye, let's give it a go. I'm only going to do kind of maybe half of these for this test. So, Talisker Skye in the glass. Nice gold straw coloured whiskey. Even that has a notable peaty hit For those who haven't watched much of my whiskey content before, I'm not the biggest peat fan. Not because I don't like the taste or the intensity of it. I do quite enjoy it, but well, it seems to give me indigestion. I don't really know why. It's a bit of an oddity. I wish I did enjoy it more because it would make buying whiskey an awful lot easier, but this has got some subtle peat smoke. There's some honey, some sweet fruit notes in there. I think even a touch of the raw malt grain actually coming through as well, which is, as a beer connoisseur, is quite an appealing flavour note for me. And notice I said connoisseur and not expert. I just enjoy it. I, again, don't profess to know an awful lot about it. And there's a bit of spice, a little heat. It's all very subtle. And I'm digging around trying to find a little bit of that kind of, that oceanic, salty, briny sea spray thing. And, well, in truth, I'm not really finding it. There's a lot of soft, earthy peat, but the distinctly oceanic qualities... Oh, hold on. There's a kind of antiseptic TCP kind of vibe that you get in a lot of peated whiskey that's starting to evolve a little bit as I swill it around the glass, and that's almost getting a bit of a chlorinated vibe. It's not distinctly oceanic, but I kind of associate that with swimming pools and that with water, so we're kind of there, but not quite. Let's give it a try, shall we? Cheers. This is definitely softer than a lot of Taliskers I remember drinking before. Couldn't tell you whether I've actually tried this one or not, because as I say, when I did try them, I wasn't on my whiskey hype. But it's got a soft bit of caramel, perhaps. Distinctly sweet up front. It's not a very full-bodied whiskey, this. It's quite calm. Yeah, kind of, caramelised fruits, maybe a bit of apple in there. And then on the swallow, you start to get a bit of a build in intensity. It's not really heavy peat. It's more like char. It's more like, well, it's more akin to kind of a smoke you might get out of an American whiskey, because it's those kind of, burnt caramel flavours rather than proper dense, smoked peat bog, basically. It's a smoke, but it's much sweeter. It's much more accessible. And actually, despite being slightly, I guess, triggered in terms of my indigestion by the aroma, what I thought might come, actually really enjoying that. That's it's an easy sipper. It doesn't give me the wow factor, if you like. I'm not going, I'm not eager to buy a bottle of it because it's not delivering maybe a full breadth of flavour, but I don't think it's meant to. I think this is meant to, well, appeal to people who aren't quite sure about their overall style yet, and maybe as a nice introduction. And I have to say, whilst I might not be instantly going for a purchase, it's not out of the question. It's nice. It is definitely very nice, just maybe a little tame. Right then, quick water break. Okay then, on to Talisker 10. This is the one I think I'm most intrigued by, because I feel like I've definitely had the Storm before and it was probably a bit too much. I've had things like their Port Cask, Port Ree, I'm sure it's called, and various other kind of special editions. I don't know if I've actually tried a straight up 10, so here we go. So the colour, again, it is kind of nice golden straw, but it's a little bit richer than the Skye was. It's a bit more amber hued. It's a bit more, yeah, I don't know, it's a bit more depthy, a bit more rose gold, perhaps. The aroma, oh, that's distinctly different. I thought that the Skye was going to be just a restrained, a pulled back version of the base 10, and actually, somehow, whether it's kind of an acclimatization factor, but that base 10 doesn't really have a big smoky profile. It's still got some of that reminiscent kind of TCP antiseptic, but the rest of it, it's all just a bit richer. It's still a few caramel notes, the grain's not as obvious. It's, for some reason, glacé cherries is coming into my head. I'm not really sure why, and we're starting to get just a little hint of that kind of proper salinity, sea salt spray kind of vibe that you expect from kind of an island or coastal distillery. And I think think I might really like this. Based on the aroma, anyway. It could all change. Let's give it a try. Cheers. Didn't actually tell you the ABV of this one. It is 45.8. And I did interrupt my first tasting there, but it makes a lot more sense actually in relationship to the Skye in flavour than it did in aroma. It's like a more grown-up version. They've got rid of some of the sweetness, some of the fruity notes. Somehow they've also got rid of some of the smoke. It's much more, I guess, complex, rich, oaky. Still kind of sweet, but very much infused with those slightly more bold and sophisticated flavours is probably the right way to describe it. And the smoke is quite dialed back. It's really just on the back end, sitting there, tantalising. I'm not getting any indigestion from it, which is fabulous. Is this slightly salty, or it's almost like a weak brine. It's not intense enough to be kind of, you know, sea salt, salt spray. There's just this slightly drying sensation on the back there that's just a tip of the hat almost to, well, yeah, very oceanic whiskey styles. And I must say, I'm struggling a bit in terms of individual notes for this, but I think it's because it's such a complete package. It feels like a fuller drink. It's definitely just, yeah, I don't know, top to bottom, it never leaves you wanting something else, which I was a little bit on the Skye. The 10 is just that bit more of a complete package, and it strings everything together. Now I'm sitting here thinking about it. It's almost kind of oak and golden syrup in places. The glacé cherry thing from the aroma is kind of there again on the taste. I'm not really sure what that is, but it's this kind of very subtle, dark fruit sweetness. There's not heaps of it. And as I guess an intermediary complexity drink, it's not the boldest thing ever. It's not meant to be. It's a core range item, I guess. And I quite often sit there fancying a dram where I don't want it to be too easy, but I don't necessarily have the mental capacity to want to work to understand a whiskey either. So nothing overly complex and overly, well, I guess just difficult is probably the right word. This sits nicely in the middle. It's got enough going on to sit there and really try and pick your way through it. I'm not doing a very good job right now, admittedly. But I think over the space of a couple of hours, watching a film or something, or just sat enjoying the great outdoors, you could really pick this apart and it wouldn't leave you bored. There's not just one or two flavours in here. It's a big old mishmash that, as I say, right now I'm struggling to actually piece together. But that very well could go on the buy list. That is very nice indeed. Okay, and then we are on to Talisker Storm. This is a 45.8% again. I'm sure that was, yeah, 45.8 on the 10. Oh, they're all 45.8. Well, I don't know what the significance of 45.8 is. It's definitely not cask strength, but hey, who knows? They just like 45.8. So let's give it a go. Sorry, there is a quick look at the bottle. It's a bit harder to see this one. It's quite a very dark label and with kind of unflattering reflective elements. I tried taking photos of this from all angles under all lights and it never quite came out right, but let's give it a go. So alarmingly in the glass, I think this is actually quite a bit lighter than the 10. Yeah, it is a touch. It's even lighter than the Skye actually. It's got this proper almost yellow pale malt straw colour. They're all in that kind of straw territory, but yeah, it's super light, super almost silvery kind of quality to it, this one. On the nose, I have to say, quite surprised. I had every real belief that the Skye was the soft, friendly, approachable one, minimal smoke, minimal peat, and actually on the aroma, I think it's the smokiest, weirdly. Maybe it's just because the others are a bit more complex and it's managed to mask it down, but Storm is undoubtedly spiky, I think is fair to say. There's some hotter, peppery spice notes in there. It's definitely a more warming sensation. There's just a huge amount of that. Well, huge actually, maybe oversight, but compared to the other two, comparatively, it's a lot more oceanic, saline, sea salt. It's more iodine forward. It's got just a tiny hint of sweetness really in there, and the rest of it's all quite big, bold, brash, almost oily on the nose, to be honest. It's yeah, I can see the stages, I can see how they're related. They've all kind of got bits of each other in them. But this, I feel, is going to be a very different drink. So, right then, the only thing left to do then is give the Talisker Storm a try. So, for the last time, cheers. I laugh because immediately, as soon as it hits your tongue, you just know you're into a slightly different world. It's quite hot, it's very warming. This is the first one of the three. I can still feel it all the way down to here. It's not heartburn yet, thankfully, but it's a very, very warming dram. And based on the descriptions I'd read, tasting notes you see when you're buying bottles, that sort of thing, I expected this to be super oily, super iodine, super salty, just, you know, a proper, well, a storm at sea in a glass. And it does have all of those characteristics. But what I wasn't expecting was the warmth. It's not just alcohol heat. These are all the same ABV. Yes, this one's probably showing it a bit more than the other two do. But also it's got this kind of proper, raw, peppery, cinnamon, almost intense winter warmer thing going on that I just didn't expect for some reason. It's almost spiced orange in places. And that spiced orange, that note from the nose, that one little bit of sweetness just peeking out from what is otherwise a very bold and kind of brash sensation. It's that orange, and it has a few almost citrus intensities matching into some of those deep, dark, earthy, salty, briny notes that actually make this, despite being big and brash, also delightfully balanced. It's interesting. I really thought I was going to sit here and tell you. I'm now concerned that I've got these the wrong way around. No, that is definitely the Skye. I really thought I was going to sit here and tell you that Skye's really nice, but I did think maybe it would be just a bit simple, a bit too easy. That the 10 was okay, but wasn't sure if it was for me, and I was going to hate the Storm. That was my preconception walking into this. It's why that box has sat on that shelf for a year, because I was like, I don't really know if I'm going to like these. It's just a bit of a fun experiment. I was wrong. I do need another sip of water, but it's the heat off that Storm just keeps going. It's going to properly warm you up. And somehow I'm sat here going, actually this end, the hot and fiery end, somehow is just more appealing to me than this slightly more soft and subtly smoked bit. It's yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, when you go back to the Skye after having been up here, it doesn't taste of a lot, if I'm totally honest. The 10, for me, I think is where I'd put my money, to be honest. It's got this almost quintessential, slightly regal, full, slightly syrupy, very, very considered taste profile and just experience in general about it that just makes you want to keep going back to that for some reason. I would not be disappointed now if someone bought me a bottle of Talisker Storm. I think in previous years I would have winced at the idea, to be honest, but if you're taking a hip flask out on a very, very cold day to, I don't know, whatever it is you do on a cold day, climb a mountain, probably don't want to drink that, climbing a mountain, if I'm totally honest. It's probably going to impact your ability to get back off it, but you know what I mean. Whether it's a cold walk down the beach in winter on a Scottish highland, wherever, something I do like to do, to be honest, that would be a great way to warm up afterwards, there's no doubt. But as I think I've already said enough times, that Talisker 10, that is an absolute delight, and I think it may well make my wish list. So there you have it. I think that's really all I've got to say about these. Have you got a favourite Talisker? Have you tried any of these, all of these, none of these? Are you going to after watching this video? Please let me know in the comments below, because I always love to hear about what you've tried, what you've liked and what you haven't. But yeah, that really is everything. So until next time, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.